Good morning, ironworkers. Before I get into my presentation, I'd like to thank General President Dean and Bill Brown and Kevin Hilton for their invitation to speak with you today. And I would like to start with a safety story instead of a safety moment. I'm going to run a little bit over, guys, but I think it's important. We're going to roll back to 1975 when I graduated from college and started my first job. And the site was the construction of the Gibson Generating Station in southern Indiana, about 30 miles north of Evansville. And 1975 was truly a different time in construction. Safety was, I'm not even sure it was thought of, quite frankly, especially in the owner's role. And I'll demonstrate that to you in just a second. The job was, we had put Unit 1 online the day I arrived, and my job was basically the civil works structural erection for Units 3 and 4. And the stack was going up in Unit 3. And my boss, Bill Minsterman at the time, I worked for Bill the entire time I worked at PSI for about 9 years. And to frame Bill, Bill was an ironworker. He'd worked out of the Evansville local for about 10 to 12 years. He'd hurt his back and couldn't continue in the trades. And went to the school there in Evansville, University of Evansville, and received a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering and joined Public Service Indiana. And was very, obviously, very skilled in the construction side. So he took me, this young kid who really didn't know much. I walked into that project and was just awed by what I saw. And that first week, he said to me one day, "Joe, go up to the stack. I need you to find out where the ironworkers are so we can get ready to, for the slip." We were slip forming the concrete shell the next day. So I walked out there really not knowing what I was doing, and I walked up to this stack, which was about 400 feet in the air at that time. And I looked at it and said, "Well, how do I even get to the top?" So I saw a guy sitting in a shack about a couple hundred feet from the stack. And I walked over, and it was an operator sitting there next to a drum hoist. And I said to him, "How do I get to the top of the stack?" And he said, "See that hook there in the middle of that chimney through that opening?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, go up and stand on that hook and give me a wave, and I'll hoist you right up." Okay. I was raised on a farm. I was told to do whatever I had to do to get stuff done when I was a kid, so yeah, that was my mindset. So I walked over, I jumped on that hook. I'd never even seen a crane before in my life. And I grabbed that wire rope, and they hoisted me up. And I wouldn't swear to it, but I would think that I left fingerprints in that wire rope that day. And I got up, and a couple ironworkers saw me struggling to get off, and they pulled me on, and I did my business up there and asked the foreman when I was done, "How do I get down?" He says, "I'll call the hook up for you." And he did, and I grabbed it and jumped on, waved to him to tell him I was ready to go down. And just then, another ironworker standing there said, "Wait a minute, I'm going to go with you." And before I could object, that man grabbed that cable, and he had his, I'd swear, just 3 toes on that hook. And I was looking at him, and I was looking at my feet, and I was moving my foot about 1/4 of an inch increments, you know, to give him a little room. And he said, "Don't worry about it, kid. I got it." And we came down. So I walked in the field office, and I reported to Bill what I found out up on that platform, and he said, "Good." And I said, "You know, Bill, it doesn't seem very safe to me." And he says, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Well, riding that hook up, you know, just step on that hook and ride it all the way up. It just doesn't seem safe." And the look on his face, I wish I had a photograph. It really telegraphed how stupid I was that morning. And he said to me, "You're kidding me." And I said, No. So for about the next 10 minutes, I got this royal ass chewing. Probably as good as my wife gives me at times. And he impressed upon me that I needed to change my thinking. And that gives you an idea where we are and the difference today as to where we were in 1975. There were no JSAs, job safety analysis. There were no safety on-site representatives. There were no safety briefings, any parameters for tracking accidents, or even leading indicators for looking at how you're doing as far as your adherence to the actual non-existent safety program at that time. So let's jump forward now, because I'm going to tell you a little bit about my company. That one. Some of the projects we have executed and our safety program, and we'll wrap it up. So, Dynegy is an independent power producer. The stats here are a little out of date because I didn't have time. We just announced an acquisition last Thursday. We bought a $3.3 billion portfolio of 17 plants from GDS Suez, and now we're up to about 35,000 megawatts. That makes us the #2 independent power producer in the country, and probably, I think we're tied with TVA for #6 overall. The company has a mix of coal fuel and oil generation, as well as a lot of natural gas. We're about 2/3 natural gas, 1/3 coal now. And we operate now in 12 states. And we have, well, whatever it is, and I don't know how they calculate 21 million homes, but quite a bit of power. And we have a retail business that operates in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Illinois as well. Again, the map isn't updated. The acquisition added quite a few plants in Texas and added to our existing plant mix in Illinois, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and added plants in West Virginia and Virginia, and probably a couple up in Massachusetts. So what we have here is our Havana station in central Illinois. And I thought you might find it interesting. This particular project, we were restricted on 3 sides and couldn't erect around the perimeter of the job, so we had to erect just from one position. So we had to bring in this 1600 crane from deep south, and you can see from the comparison to the pickup truck sitting there, this is quite a large crane. We fabricated all of the shells of the spray dryer absorbers off to the side and lifted them. There was about a 100-foot tall, 54-foot wide shell for each of the spray dryer absorbers. You see the heads going on to cap the first one, pre-insulated with all the piping and everything already in. And what you see is the scaffolding hanging from the interior, something else we didn't have in 1975. And for the riggers out in the crowd, I would imagine for most of the iron workers here, you've probably reeved a block at some point in time. And you'll see this particular rig is a pretty complicated reeving process. And I thought you might enjoy seeing that for a moment. We're going to go to Baldwin Station in southern Illinois. Baldwin's 3 600-megawatt units. What you see is from the back wall of the plant to the lake, my construction team put all of the projects in place for all of the scrubbers, the SCRs, the mercury reduction systems that we had to install due to the EPA regulations. Quite a large job. Steel work was done by Ben-Hur Construction out of St. Louis and performed by Local 392 out of East St. Louis, Illinois. And both organizations did a fabulous job for us. Here's a vertical shot from the stack of our scrubber project that's ongoing at Newton Station in central Illinois. We're about 71% complete at the job now and closing in on it. This is a real interesting project. We had a station in Southern California. This is located in San Diego, right on the bay. And we lost our lease. And basically what happened, we had this facility on land owned by the Port of San Diego. When the California ISO removed our reliability must-run status, we had to go ahead and demolish the plant. So what I'm going to do at this point is show you the demolition of the plant, and we'll talk about that for just a second. Now you'll note the sprays of water. Sprays of water which were totally ineffective in controlling the dust. Pretty hard for me to hide my disgust on that. That's California. Beautifully operating plant. We were in the viewscape since we were right on the bay, and we weren't really popular. What you see here is a moment of levity for us. The California has very strict emission systems. We were told that when we wanted to bring in equipment to mow the sites to keep the weeds down, that we would have a 90-day process for a permit, and we would have to have, we'd have to meet all of their emission standards. So I had a very clever set of engineers out on that project team, and they went out and hired our latest set of employees for weed control. They're waiting their safety orientation. You can't make this up, folks. You know, this is California. So we brought in our goats, and they maintained the site for us. It's just amazing. Okay, so let's talk about safety stats for a moment. Dynegy, as I mentioned, we just completed an acquisition, and we've been on really a tear the last 3 years. We've completed 4 major acquisitions and really have grown the company into a very large company today. Our safety stats, however, have not kept pace with our ambition to grow our company. We did have a fairly good declining record in 11, 12, and 13. And what you see is as we added plants, and it's not an excuse, as we added plants, our safety numbers jumped dramatically. Now, we still don't today know why. We've been investing a heck of a lot of effort to find out why. But there is emerging of cultures from each company as we acquired them and bringing people into our company and trying to unify everyone in their mission going forward that I don't think we've quite cemented yet. Our contractor safety, although not quite as bad as our own, still was not as good as we wanted. So what we have done is we've decided to embark upon a series of measures to drive safety in our company and with our partners. All of our sites will achieve the OSHA VPP status by 2020. This year, we have 4 sites lined up for a VPP readiness review. Now, obviously, this requires overhaul of our existing internal process to align with the OSHA's process for health and safety program elements. It does require OSHA to come in and do a review and audit once we tell them we are ready. And any outstanding items require corrective action within 90 days. And then hopefully we achieve status for that particular site. Contractor safety integration, we have contracted with ISNet World, and the whole purpose of this is to measure safety performance of the contractor prior to award. What we'll do is ISNet will take the contractor safety program and do a comparison against our requirements and identify the gap analysis that needs to be addressed by the contractor or the supplier if they're going to be working on site to do prior to us bringing them in. And that way we know that we're all on the same path. We'll also integrate with procurement and legal during that process. Benchmarking and analyzing best practices is another key component where we're going to leverage our relationships, external and internal to the company. We plan to, and already have, by the way, met with our industry peers, Calpine, NRG, and Talon Energy, and we are reviewing their programs as they are reviewing ours to identify best practices and look to where we can obviously do the gap analysis, and look to where we can improve our process because we've looked at their safety records, and frankly, they're better than ours. We're probably, as we look at our status with industry, we're just mid, we're at the average, and that's far from where we want to be. We'll also engage with EEI, which is an electric industry group composed mostly of investor utilities and IPPs. And at a very high level, we'll engage with the senior VPs of generation and engage their safety program personnel with ours as well to, again, glean best practices across the industry. Now, lastly, I'm going to be on time, guys. This is my wife, Julie. We've been married for 41 years. And I just want to take a cue from what was said up here earlier. For the last 41 years, my wife has said to me every morning when I leave, she says, be safe. Come home, be safe. And if we can't be smart enough to do it for ourselves, then by this time in our lives, I'm sure we are. But if we can't, let's do it for the ones we love, for the ones that love us, and for all the people who depend on us on a daily basis. It's an important thing. It's a personal thing. This isn't something that we glean from corporate stats or look at how we improve metrics. This is for us and for all the people that we work with. Thank you very much for your attention. I appreciate it.